Welcome to Hidden Reality. Imagine this. You're 12 years old. It's 5:30 in the morning, and you're getting ready for a big school wrestling tournament. You expect to find your mom in the kitchen making breakfast, right? But the house is completely silent. For young Tad Dennis, that silence was the start of an absolute nightmare. He walks down the hall, pushes open his mom's bedroom door, and sees the covers pulled all the way up over her head. He calls out. Nothing. What he discovers next, well, it kicks off a deeply unsettling mystery that we're going to unravel today.
Because when Tad finally pulled back those covers to wake her up, his blood ran cold. He wasn't looking at his mother at all. He was looking at a pile of pillows, and they were meticulously arranged to look exactly like a sleeping body. I mean, instantly the stakes just skyrocketed. This wasn't some mom who just went out for an early morning jog. Someone had deliberately gone to great lengths to make it look like 39-year-old Janet Dennis was safe in bed. Why? To buy themselves precious time.
And the time frame they had to work with was terrifyingly narrow. See, Janet was last seen by her kids at 9 p.m. on a Friday in December. The house was all decked out for Christmas. By 5:30 a.m., she's gone. Just 30 minutes later, a panicking Tad realizes his mom's car is missing too, and he calls his dad, Janet's ex-husband, Leroy. So in the span of just 8.5 hours, overnight, a loving, responsible mother vanishes into thin air.
When Detective Craig Gravel shows up on Monday, he's looking at a seriously confusing scene. There's no sign of a struggle, the house is completely immaculate, but Janet's toiletries bag and her red Chevy Blazer are missing. Now, when police question Leroy, he throws out a theory. He says, hey, maybe the stress of single motherhood just finally got to her. He suggested that maybe she just spontaneously drove to Las Vegas to blow off some steam. But honestly, that Vegas theory fell apart almost immediately. Investigators ran her name through the central database for every single hotel in Las Vegas. 0 hits, no reservations. And the physical evidence? Well, that was even more damning. Police ended up finding Janet's Chevy Blazer sitting in the long-term parking lot of the Oklahoma City airport. And when Detective Gravel looked through the windows, he saw the entire back seat was crammed full of freshly wrapped Christmas gifts. Think about it. A mother planning this festive holiday for her kids absolutely does not abandon a car full of presents for some spur-of-the-moment gambling trip. The mystery just completely deepened.
Which brings us to our first major twist: the secret boyfriend.
During a really tough interview with Janet's devastated father, Arthur, detectives get hit with a massive curveball. Janet had been hiding a new boyfriend named Jim, a soldier stationed at a nearby base. And this wasn't just a surprise. It came with a massive red flag. Arthur, clearly filled with regret, admitted he had actually given Jim a key to Janet's house just hours after she was reported missing. Why on earth would he do that? Well, Jim claimed he needed to sneak in to grab some love letters before her ex-husband Leroy could find them. Essentially, Jim wanted to get into a potential crime scene to remove physical evidence. And Jim just kept inserting himself right into the middle of this investigation. Like he magically happened to show up at the airport at the exact same time police found Janet's car. What are the odds? Then, during his interrogation, he drops a total bombshell. He admits he was secretly at Janet's house after 9 p.m. on Friday night. That made him the last known person to see her alive. You add in the fact that he was actually living with another woman at the time, and then the kicker. He failed his first polygraph test. Suddenly, Jim is looking like the prime suspect.
But in cases like this, you can't afford to get tunnel vision, so investigators pivot to take a hard look at the ex-husband, Leroy.
And as detectives dig into Janet's life, they uncovered just how bitter this recent divorce really was. Sure, Jim was acting super suspicious, but Leroy had an ironclad motive. According to their divorce settlement, he owed Janet $30,000 in cash. But it was way worse than that. He also owed her half of his 1,500-acre ranch, which, by the way, was his entire livelihood. Top that off with a judge awarding Janet full custody of their 3 kids, and Leroy was facing total devastation. He had lost his money, half his property, and his family. So now, Detective Gravel is staring down an impossible dilemma. Look at this. On one hand, you've got Jim, the lying, secret boyfriend with terrible timing who bombed a lie detector test. On the other hand, you have Leroy, an ex-husband facing absolute financial ruin who refused to take a second polygraph after his first one was inconclusive. Oh, and there were dark local rumors swirling around about some massive bonfire on his ranch right around the time Janet disappeared. Both of these men were throwing up massive red flags, pulling the detectives in 2 completely opposite directions.
And just when you think you have a handle on it, the case takes a really dark turn.
As police are trying to sort out this mess, Leroy contacts them with a deeply disturbing find.
He says he found a box of Jim's belongings stashed at Janet's house. Inside, a shocking VHS pornography tape depicting violent torture, specifically a woman being tied up and burned. Was this it? Was this the real reason Jim wanted that key to sneak into the house? To hide his dark fantasy? Gravel hauls Jim right back in. But this time, Jim swears up and down he has no idea where that tape came from. He agrees to a second polygraph specifically about the tape, and, shockingly, he passes. While that's happening, the strongest lead they had against Leroy starts falling apart too. Investigators finally track down the neighbor who reported seeing that massive, unusual bonfire on Leroy's property. But when the police show up, she gets this look of guilt on her face. She completely backtracks her timeline. She tells them, actually, the fire I saw occurred a few days before Janet went missing. Just like that, a hugely promising lead turns into a crushing dead end. The trail went totally ice cold.
Which leads us to the chilling truth that finally broke the silence.
For 6 agonizing weeks, nothing. No answers, just an empty bed and 3 kids without a mom. It's crazy to think that a simple human error almost let a killer walk totally free. But then, in February 1991, Detective Gravel's phone rings. It's Leroy's neighbor again. She had just checked her calendar and realized she made a terrible, terrible mistake. That massive bonfire she saw, it didn't happen before the disappearance. It happened the exact day after Janet vanished. Suddenly, the timeline locked perfectly into place. Search teams immediately descended on the burn pits out on Leroy's massive ranch. And there, they uncovered the horrific truth: Janet's remains.
Forensics was eventually able to piece together the cold, calculated steps of that night. Driven by sheer rage, Leroy stood over his sleeping ex-wife. Step 1, he incapacitated her right there in bed with a chloroform-soaked rag. Step 2, he meticulously staged those pillows to create that decoy for his own kids. Step 3, he moved her unconscious body to a secondary house he owned and tied her up. Step 4, he drove her Blazer to the airport to fake a spontaneous trip, taking a taxi back. And then finally, Step 5, he drove her out of the city, beat her to death with a shovel, and burned her body on his ranch.
It was an absolute masterclass in deception, but it finally caught up to him.
You see, Leroy Dennis really thought he could outsmart everyone. He planted that horrific VHS tape to frame Jim. He made up that whole Las Vegas theory to throw off the cops. He even played the perfect role of the panicked, concerned father, calling 911 himself. But in the end, it was his absolute hatred over the custody battle, the fear of financial ruin, and this burning, toxic jealousy over Janet's new boyfriend that drove him to commit the ultimate betrayal. The jury saw right through all his smoke and mirrors. Leroy Dennis was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to spend the rest of his natural life behind bars with zero chance of parole. And it just leaves us with this deeply unsettling question. How easily can a cold-blooded killer hide in plain sight, standing right beside you, wearing the mask of a caring father? Think about it. Leroy Dennis walked around his own home for days, comforting his terrified children, knowing exactly what he had done to their mother out there in the dark. If you enjoy uncovering hidden truths, subscribe to Hidden Reality and join us for more extraordinary